What's up, Coffee Crew? It is James from Room Mill Espresso, and we have a question here today. So, the question is how to know when you should give up on the coffee trailer dream. Feeling really disheartened, waste of time, effort, and money. Is this job really worth it? Do I just suck as working and as my own boss? Thanks in advance. Well, it's a pretty loaded question, to be honest, and the failure rate in hospitality and coffee is exceptionally high. It's like, what, 4 out of 5 businesses fail within 3 years, something like that, and then even more within a 5 year time frame. It looks like you would make a lot of money doing it because generally at peak hour at the markets, you see, 20 or 30 people waiting. You go, oh, these guys must be like raking in the money, killing it. But from my personal experience, I can tell you it's not really the case. I'm quite lucky that I have built a really good regular customer base on my event days, and the places that I trade at, the foot traffic is really consistent for the most part. You always have up days and down days and other events to compete with, but the food vendor, the mobile food and coffee vendor scene in Australia is, it feels saturated from a vendor's point of view. I'm sure it probably doesn't feel that way from the organizer's point of view. Having been one, I know that it feels like it's the opposite of saturated. It's impossible to find stall holders. What's difficult as a mobile coffee vendor is making consistent profit. That is the most difficult part of it. And I'm not sure what sort of setup you're running, if you were a trailer or a cart or a van. But all of them have their own flaws. Like the coffee cart, it's low cost of entry, but you're less likely to get onboarded for an event. They're more likely to pick a van or a trailer because it shows that someone has invested capital into their business, and maybe has a better setup, can offer a better product, has more capital. All those sorts of things might affect how someone looks at putting on a coffee vendor. Feeling really disheartened, waste of time, effort, and money. It absolutely sucks. I remember the first time where I started doing one event per month, like one market per month as a regular trade, and then built that to 2, and then 3, and now I do 6 to 8 per month, and that's kind of, I'm happy with that number, honestly. I do other private catering events and that sort of thing to fill out the week occasionally. But, 6 events at the start of the year, then I do 8 from April all the way through to December. One of the biggest things I think is you have to do regular events to eliminate your wastage and your turnover of stock. If you're not doing events daily or weekly, then it means you're going to have a higher wastage point as well. So you really want to make sure that you are doing something at least on a weekly basis. It's difficult. If I was starting out now and my site fee was $200 for the day, which it is, and you don't have a customer base, that's going to be very difficult to get a profit from. But that's what business is as well. Like if you start any other business, you're probably not going to expect to make profit within the first sort of 3-ish months, if not longer. If you're doing a service-based sort of business, you can start getting some clients and some income straight away. But if you're paying back any sort of startup cost, then that money's going back to pay for the business, or maybe take like a small wage out of it. Yeah, it is a tough climate, and I feel for anyone out there at the moment, because the thing is, a coffee should cost like minimum $6. A large coffee should be close to $10, if you go by cost of goods and all that sort of stuff. But customers don't want to pay that much money for a coffee. Well, to be fair, I don't think the market's really trialed it to charge $10 for a coffee, but that is going to be the case in the not too distant future. Like coffee prices are going to go, like to actually hit that market value where people stay open, coffee prices are going to have to go up by like 20%, which the consumer doesn't want to hear. And here's the catch-22 of it, right? So you want to make more money, and so you have to put your prices up so that you can just keep the doors open essentially. And then if you put your prices up, you're going to lose a percentage of your customers. So, your revenue might stay the same, or your profit and revenue are both going to vary a little bit, and it might even dip after that. Like, 7-Eleven and McDonald's are our competitors as well, which is a really difficult person to compete against. Yeah, is it a waste of time, effort, and money? The money part remains to be seen. I mean, you can make money out of coffee. There are certainly cafes that make money out of coffee because they are the busy ones, and they're doing like your minimum benchmark. If you're a mobile coffee vendor, should be like 100 coffees a day as absolute bare minimum. I remember I had a site that I was trying to build Monday to Friday, and it took me 9 months, and it grew from like 40 to 50, and then I got up to like 80 or 90 coffees a day and never really cracked that 100 mark where I was actually paying myself a wage out of it. And the only reason why I could have done those things is because I kept my expenses so low throughout that period. And it took 9 months of doing it, and then I had my tax return meeting with the accountant, and he's like, what are all these costs? And I go, oh, it's coffee and blah, 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 and rent and site and all that sort of thing. He's like, where's your profit? I was like, oh, well, it all comes from those 2 days of trade on the weekend. Like, there's no profit Monday to Friday. I think I traded Monday to Friday, and I was profiting $100 a day, if that, for about 9 months, which... I mean, that seems like a fair stint to get your profit margin up. And if it's not working in 9 months, then you should probably try somewhere else. Or what I did was I just stopped doing that Monday to Friday site. I worked 3 days a week for someone else, and I was infinitely happier. Infinitely happier. I've had another business where it had a huge opportunity for growth because the business was a farmer's market, and I also had the coffee trailer at the farmer's market. And so I thought, well, if I have the coffee trailer and the markets, then it means I can add extra vendors, I can bring extra revenue. If I add extra vendors, then I can get extra customers, and all those extra customers are going to come to the coffee trailer. And it just seemed like this huge exponential growth line or whatever you want to call it. And for 1 day a week, that business made excellent money. However, the issue was I could only ever trade 1 day a week. And a really good business, you should be able to trade 5 or 6 or 7 days a week. And that business, you could only ever trade 1 day a week. And the only other way to scale it would be to, set up another market, which I had zero interest in doing whatsoever, or B, expand the current site, but it didn't really warrant it. Like, there wasn't that notoriety about that market. It was good because of the size of it, and it meant a whole lot of extra investment to expand that market and take up more space and get more vendors on. And I think when you're doing this sort of thing, a really key thing to remember is you have to go into business about what you are passionate about. Because when I had that market business, I was thinking, am I going to outcompete the giants of this industry? Like in Brisbane, that's Jan Powers, that's Goodwill. And those are the two big ones that I can think of. I know that there's other market groups around and all that sort of stuff. And I just kind of went, well, can I compete with those people? And I took a look, like a really long, hard look at what I was doing. I said, probably not. And that's a difficult situation to be in, where you pour your heart and your soul into something and you try to grow it, and you do see growth and you do see some return, and you go, well, do I just keep slogging it out for another year, 2, 3, 5 years or something? Or do I compete with something that I can be the best at? And so for me, I know that running a coffee trailer or a coffee business is something that I can be the best at. And if you're disheartened by the market and the situation, just remember that you are competing with people like me, where if I go to work to the day and I don't make money, I don't care because I know that next weekend I'm going to make it back anyway. I know during winter my profit's going to go up 1.5 times. I know that if I really want to, I can do festivals and earn 5 to 7 grand in a week. And so that is the tricky part, is think about who your competition is as well, and can you compete with them at that level. And you don't have to do that today, but you have to say, all right, eventually, can I compete with them? And so when it comes to coffee, for me, yes, I can compete with anyone on a coffee level. When it came to the market business, I said, it's not my dream. It's not my dream. The coffee business was my dream. That's why I went after it. That's why I did it. The market business kind of fell into my lap and I said yes. And I'm really grateful I said yes. There's nothing wrong about that business. Like, every business has flaws once you get into it. And you can't always see those flaws from the outside. But one of those things was, one, you're running a business controlled by the weather. And then 2, you can only ever operate 1 day a week. And so if you can only operate 1 day a week and then you get affected by the weather 13 weeks in a row, like that might have happened to me, whereas 13 weeks in a row, it rained, and you have 13 weeks of impacted income, which you are relying on to live off, to pay the bills, that makes you a very sad boy. So it just depends if you think you can compete or not. And where was I going with this? It was something I was going to tell you before, and now I've lost my train of thought. And it was... Oh, that's right. So it was... I remember one of the first markets, or not one of the first markets that I did, but in the first sort of 6 months of taking over a market, I remember it's Friday afternoon, I've got markets Saturday and maybe Sunday, I can't remember, but this one was the Saturday that I was definitely going to. And I pick up all my stock on a Friday afternoon, I load the trailer up, I've got my staff ready to go for the day, and then, you wake up Saturday morning and you get to site, or it might have even happened before site, but it is pissing down rain. Isn't that funny? I was just saying how, the weather affected the market business, but I didn't think about how it affected the coffee business. Interesting for me, anyway. So I went to this market on a Saturday morning, and it pissed down rain all day. I still kept one of my staff on. I cancelled another one, and turnout was really low, and I think by 9 o'clock they just cancelled the market and said, oh, sorry, it's too wet, there's no customers, let's pack up and go home. And I remember getting home that day and I was drenched. I'd been up since 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I had all this stock left over. I was miserable because I'd had a shit day out in the rain and all my gear got wet and I didn't make money. And that was the first day that I had gone to work for free. And I think if you are willing to do this job, you have to be willing to go to work for free. And that was the first really powerful feeling I had of it, where it's like, wow, I put in all this effort. I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I have my gear ready. I drive to site. I set it up. I wait for the customers. The customers don't come. And then it gets cancelled and everyone else gets paid but you. The market organisers get paid, the coffee supplier gets paid, the milk supplier gets paid, the wages get paid, the packaging people get paid, your GST gets paid, the Iceman gets paid, your petrol gets paid. Every single one of those costs gets paid except for your wages, because there's no money left over from that day. There's no money to pay yourself. So that is the really challenging thing. To anyone in this business, I thoroughly admire you for going after it. It is hard as balls out there. Coffee should be like minimum $6, but closer to like $8 or $9 for a large coffee. Because, okay, and just so if you're an outside of the industry looking in, if I go to a German sausage hut and they charge me $10 or $12 for a sausage, that costs them, let's say, $1 for the sausage and 20 or 30 cents for the bun and some packaging. When you come to the coffee trailer, guess what? It cost me about, I don't know, 70 cents for the coffee shot that you get, about 30 cents for the milk, any other extras that you get in there, like sugar, like syrups, like marshmallows, like chocolate, all that sort of stuff, plus packaging, which is not cheap. It works out to be about the same. It's still like $1.30 to $1.50 cost. At least, for a small. And so a small coffee should cost $6. Isn't that nuts? So I think this year is really going to be the year where cafes and coffee shops everywhere just put their prices up by like $1. Because otherwise people are just going to go broke. There's going to be no money left for cafe owners, and it's crippling the industry currently. So to that person that said, is it, a lot of hard work and a waste of money? Sometimes. It's not the perfect answer, but it is an answer. All right, if you've watched this far, thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to me, yap on like this about coffee and business and all that sort of stuff. If you want, you can follow me at Rumour Mill Espresso, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. My name is James. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.